Addiction never affects just the addict. It affects all of us. Recovering from addiction and alcoholism is also a life-changing battle for families dealing with a loved one's addiction. Numerous programs support addicts as they reclaim their lives, while their families face their own challenges without the same guidance. You're listening to Voices in Courage with KL Wells, where we transform the lives of the families and loved ones of addicts and alcoholics from surviving to thriving in the midst of chaos. Tune in as we highlight vulnerable stories of families who have addicted relatives and friends and learn how they have dealt with the challenges of isolation, desperation, and shame. If you are seeking ways to live your best life, then we welcome you into this safe space. Be a part of change today with your host, KL Wells.
All right. Well, it's been quite a while since you and I have talked, KL. How have you been?
Lots of ups, downs, sideways, all the things that go along with, substance abuse disorder. So, wow, I can't even think the last time we actually had a conversation about this. But what's prompted this conversation was we thought it would be important for our audience to hear that, 2023 was, I guess, a challenging year, to say the least, from a substance abuse perspective and dealing with my son. And just so that people know that we interview a lot of people. We talk about resiliency and how to keep your act together and the things that are important to do to keep yourself sane and in a pretty good space and more thriving than not. And we're talking about this most of the time through the lens of we're still dealing with this,
Right. Exactly. So now that we've just entered 2024 and everybody's ready to start anew, and you kind of had that roller coaster of 2023, like you're talking about, where there was some good, some bad, and some ugly. So I was hoping that you could kind of take us through today, because you had a period of time where you were with no contact with Sam for a significant period of time for pretty much the fall season. So I think we're here today because we want to help people get through that experience of having no contact. But I think we'll get to that. But I think the most important thing is to kind of start back to where it all began so they can understand Sam's story for 2023 and kind of where you are now.
Well, so 2023, and for those of you who have not heard the story before, my son has been dealing with substance abuse disorder for a long time, and it ratcheted up in the fall of 2017. And we began to realize that he had a bigger problem than we had anticipated. So lots of ups and downs, arrest, drug court, multiple rehabs, all of those things. So let's fast forward to 2023. He moves across the country. We're on the West Coast. He moved to the East Coast with his best friend and got a job and was doing all the things. And in March, we found out that he had relapsed. And because of circumstances in this kind of day and time, heroin had been kind of sucked out of the market. And so he was kind of left with, fentanyl. And so when we found out that he was in fact dealing with a relapse in fentanyl, it kind of takes your breath away.
Absolutely.
Because you realize that any moment throughout the day could be the moment. And
so
it's
kind of stop there when you realize like, any moment could be the moment. So if you kind of put us at that period of time when you have those feelings and you could get a call and he's gone. How did you cope with that? How did you move on with your day? What are some of the things that you did that you found were helpful to keep you going?
Well, one is you have that realization and then you realize, well, at least for me, yes, it's a possibility. At the same time, like I can't suspend my life for a possibility.
Exactly.
I can't go down the rabbit hole of losing my sanity because of a possibility. And so I was not willing to give my life away for a possibility. And so, okay, it's a possibility. There's no question about it. Is worry going to help that possibility? Absolutely not. Is really what the only thing that I actually could control at that point, because, my son's 32 years old. He is an adult living on the other side of the country. So the only thing I could really do with that moment was certainly pray and do my work. to take care of myself at as high level as I could possibly do, which actually that knowing prompted me to go back to Eckhart Tolle and pull The Power of Now off the shelf. Yeah, it prompted me to pull Byron Katie's Loving What Is off the shelf, and to surround myself once again with learning from reading books, listening to podcasts, talking to people that are learning and have learned how to thrive in the midst of the kind of some moments of desperation in this disease and the chaos of this disease. And so taking back my power at another high level, you just keep taking it up. That's how have a perspective on it for me personally, is I just continue to elevate my ability to get back in the present moment, to take care of myself at a really high level. Anytime a thought would go through my head that I could get the call today, honestly, those are pause moments for me where I'm like, okay, I'm aware that that thought went through my head. Am I going to pick it up, or am I not? Am I going to give it an energy, or am I not? And the vast majority of the time it is a decision to, I'm not going to give that any energy, because it doesn't serve me. It doesn't serve the moment. It doesn't allow for hope.
And so you're making a conscious choice at that time, and you're kind of talking a little bit about the mental and emotional choices that you're making. I know that you're also a very physical person. I think that that's a big piece of your life that helps you be at the level that you're at. So physically, what is it that you did to take care of yourself during that time?
Well, so I think about it through kind of an emotional fitness perspective. And through that lens, I have a very kind of rigorous way of consistently doing my work to take care of myself every day. So from the moment I open my eyes up, I go to gratitude. So that's how I start my day. And I'm up early between 4 and 5. Before I pop out of bed, I open my eyes and I do my gratitude rounds. And then I go about getting up, getting the shower, and I'm kind of meditating in the shower, very like aware of being in the shower, like present. And then from a physical perspective, I go have a whole glass of water to rehydrate, and I do stretching. And again, I'm listening to a tape that I have, or yeah, that's the best way I could think to describe it. That's a positive tape for my day. It sets my intention for the day. And then I'm off to the gym. And the gym is, I have my workout routines that are scheduled, and I know what I'm doing that day. I will vary it depending on kind of where I am, and if I need an extra kind of energy boost, so to speak, then I'll shift my routine so that I can get the kind of up level in terms of my own energy that I know that I need for the day. Then I come home, I'm doing a mantra, gratitude rounds, other things that I do from a mantra perspective on the way to the gym and home from the gym. Very intentional.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So you kind of know what you're doing. Okay. Well, that's great. So,
so here's another couple things I think is really important. Number one is I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't do drugs. And so I'm keeping my body clean as best I can. And I'm pretty vigilant in terms of what nutrition wise and the supplements that I take. So I want to be at the top of my game because I have a life I love.
Right.
And that just because I found out Sam was, relapsed and on fentanyl did not change any of that. Mm-hmm. I still stayed consistent to the nutrition, the sleeping hygiene that I have, all of those kinds of things that I had been perfecting for years, stayed consistent in order for me to continue to navigate at a really high level despite what was going on.
Yeah, that makes such a difference, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And takes a lot of self-discipline for sure. So now that you've kind of mentioned how you went about in the world when you were thinking at any moment you could get the call, mm-hmm. If you could kind of take us along the ride there, from March to, into May, things got a little bit more heated up. If you could take us mm-hmm. there.
Yeah. So, those 2 months were holding the space for him to find his way to a rehab. And that was really about 2 months. And so for me, it was 2 months of working at being present in my life. And sure, I was, praying for him. I was sending him good thoughts and holding the space for him to find the rehab that he eventually did find. Owning, when I was having those moments of, man, this is a lot. And what I would say is, because I've worked really hard at perfecting habits of thought, habits of behavior, habits of emotion, those are just moments. I never had like a whole bad morning, a whole bad afternoon, a whole bad day. That's just not how I am trained now. Is I may have the bad moment. I may have a thought go through my mind that kind of takes my breath away.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm aware, and then I know what I need to do in order to get my breath back and my presence back in that time. And so we had I had a couple moments where he had moved across country to with his best friend. Well, when he relapsed, he was stealing from his best friend. And so his best friend moved out and left him with almost nothing in an apartment. And I talked to Sam on a Tuesday evening. He was quite desperate at that point, like, bring me home. I can't do this. And, that's hard to hear your child, kind of begging you to bring them home. At the same time, just from a logical perspective, they can't get on an airplane. It's impossible. And so,
yeah, that's
yeah, it's not.
Those are the logistical things that you don't think you have to think about, but you do, because there's no. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, fentanyl is an hour by hour addiction, so there is no getting on an airplane. And so to say no and to know that he was going to have to figure it out. And so I said, he was at the apartment. So I said, at least just get some sleep tonight. I mean, he sounded so exhausted.
Mm-hmm.
And so I said, I will call you in the morning. And so I called him in the morning and his phone was disconnected. And so I had a moment, and I had a meeting that I was facilitating that morning. And fortunately, these people know me really well. They know the story. And I just said, I'm kind of fragile right now.
Yeah.
And I'm asking you guys to hold the space and to be who I know you are, so we can do this meeting together. And I know just by being here, I will begin to rise. And I didn't say I'm having a bad day, because then it kind of declares a bad day. And I was not going to have a bad day. I love these guys, these people. So I just said, I'm fragile right now in this moment. And as the day, the morning wore on, I got more and more present and lifted and was able to be there with this group of people. And so by the evening,
you're kind of putting your book into practice, because the part of your book, the 5 Acts of Courage, feel your emotions, allow yourself to feel, and then surround yourself with community. You're putting them right into practice at the moment where you're pretty much at a very dark, dire time for you. So that's, I think, a big piece of what you do is that you don't just talk the talk, you walk the walk. And so I think that that's a crucial aspect when you're in those dire moments.
Yeah, there's no question about that. I mean, I do firmly believe that when we have those moments where we're on our knees and it's incredibly vulnerable, is for us to own them.
Right.
And because that's where I was. And so I value authenticity and genuineness. And that's who I want to be in the world. And when I have those moments, I want to be genuine and authentic about having those moments and allow others to rise up, to be there and present for me, because, I, as a business coach and business consultant, I'm the one generally who's there for others. And so they had the gift of the opportunity to be my shoulder, that morning. And they rose, and they were, and that's just a great gift for all parties involved.
Brings you closer together.
Yeah, for sure. Everybody needs to see that I'm human too, and that I do walk my talk, and I don't have any qualms about doing that. So that evening, I got a phone call from Sam, and he had found a rehab to go to. And I knew we were in a different place because, number one, this was the first time this is the first time he'd ever been all the way across the country. He had, for all intents and purposes, burned every bridge he had, and he was alone, and he knew he needed help. It is in those moments where your child, your adult son or daughter is going to either choose to get help or not. And he chose to get help. And fortunately, there is a really fantastic program in the city that he's living in now. And so for the last 8 months, he has been in that program. Kind of another trying moment for me was I had talked to him in August, I believe it was. And then there was kind of radio silence for months.
Right. We're hit the radio silence part. So this has got to be one of the top toughest things you've gone through as a mother, having radio silence for 4 months. So I really was hoping you could kind of take us through, because I think that in those 4 months, I can't imagine what you went through, but I think there's also, from going through it myself, where you're almost afraid to allow yourself to live your life. You sometimes might feel guilty about that. Or when you're laughing, I remember stopping myself because I'm not allowed to laugh because I don't know what's going on over here. So in those 4 months, I'd really like to know, because it's obvious that you're resilient. It's obvious that you're self-disciplined. It's obvious that you've got your schedule. But what I'd really like to know are those moments when, okay, now you've gone radio silence and someone's made you laugh, or you're having a really good afternoon with Patty. Did guilt ever creep in? And so it didn't. Okay. So tell me about those times. How did you that to become a part of?
Years ago, I gave myself permission to live my life. And so I have no guilt about living my life. I think it's a little crazy making to think we should suspend living our lives because somebody's ill. And so, yeah, I'm a big believer in laughter. No point did I go, oh, I shouldn't be laughing because this is happening over here. No, I actually think that's a really good thing to do. I do think it's a really good thing to still look for the joy in our lives.
100%.
Yes. And so none of that was part of the equation. What did happen at one point was I said to Patty, it's been 2.5 months at this point. Would you mind checking to see if he's either been arrested or he's dead? And she said yes. And so, because you're left to make up all this stuff that won't serve you, and I wasn't going to continue to do that. So I was like, okay, I just need facts. If there's a John Doe that's died, okay. If he's arrested, we'll know that. And no. So, okay, great. So I'm going to assume that he's still in rehab and that he's doing his work. And right now that doesn't include me. And I'm okay with that. And that was what I continued to think about and stay clear about and hang on to and focus on. And now don't get me wrong. There were moments when the darker thoughts would creep in. It's just I was prepared to send them packing, and to acknowledge their presence and to acknowledge the fact that that just doesn't help me. That doesn't serve me because I don't know the answers. And I'm not going to be able to fix this, change it. The only thing I can control is me in this moment. And I chose to be conscious and thrive.
So is there any point that you want to bring up that stands out for you during those 4 months of no contact, whether it's a positive memory or experience or one that wasn't your favorite, that you think would be helpful to share with somebody who's in the middle of no contact right now? Is there anything that stands out for you in those 4 months?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, what I would say is if you hit a moment where your heart is broken, let it break. And then pick yourself up and realize that you don't know what's going on, and don't make stuff up, because it's only going to take you down the rabbit hole of darkness. And, I interviewed a mom yesterday for our podcast who had lost her son 2 years ago. And I did not ever want to live in what we talked about was parents who die with their kids, whether they've passed or they're still alive and they're in the throes of substance abuse disorder. I was determined not to die with my son's disease, and to actually continue to laugh, continue to love my life, continue to thrive, have moments for sure of heartbreak and where I had to take a breath and I chose to pause and think, okay, how's this serving me? It's not. So I'm going to let that thought go. And then I'm going to continue to believe that Sam's doing his work, and it doesn't include me right now. And that's okay. He's an adult. He's a big guy, and he's going to figure his way out of this. He's going to call to himself the resources of people and tools that he needs in order to pop out the other side. I wanted to be a happy, whole person when he popped out the other side. I didn't want him popping out the other side to a broken mom.
Right. That's a big deal. So can you tell us about when he did pop out on the other side, when you got the call on Christmas?
Well, he had reached out through Messenger that he had, I think he was just past like 6.5, 7 months into the program.
Incredible.
Which is awesome. And and so that reach out on Messenger was fantastic.
Right.
And okay, all right, he's still in the program. He's moved to this next level. He has been doing his work. He's coming up on another phase to the program that would lead to him being accepted into an outpatient patient treatment house and a job. And so we just kept messaging back and forth and sporadically. And then on Christmas, messaging. And then I just said, are you able to call? And he said, yes. And he had spent Christmas kind of at an all day meeting and with his community.
Mm-hmm.
And so he said he would give me a call later that day. And he did. So it was the first time I got to hear his voice. And yeah, there's just kind of, a breath of fresh air and hearing your child's voice when it's been a long time. And he sounded good. I mean, we're still at this point, he's like 8.5 months into recovery. And we know that it's going to take 15, 18 months for his brain to come back, get rewired, all of the things. And it sounds like he's strongly embedded in a community of support and thriving to have the things in place that he needs, which basically are the same things I need. Feel the feelings, take care of yourself, surround yourself with a great community, continue to learn, and shift your beliefs about yourself. Drop the shame and the guilt and all that swirls around this disease. And so it was a great 20-minute conversation. And knowing that he was going to start work for the first time in months. What's today? Wednesday. 2 days. No, yesterday. He started work yesterday for the first time in probably 10 months or so.
Wow. Well, congratulations to him. That is just, that's a tremendous, tremendous accomplishment. I know that we're running out of time here, so I just want to make sure that we touch base on if there's something that I didn't, ask you about that you think is important for us to, touch base on. Is there anything that we missed?
I genuinely think that, number one, be compassionate with yourself first. Really, 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 you have to put your oxygen mask on first. The self-care for you is mission critical so that you can be a healthier person when and if they pop out the other side. You can't worry your way into helping them.
Right.
You can only kind of self-destruct with worry and concern.
I think you said it exactly right when you said when they pop out on the other side, you want them to see a healthy, happy mother that's living her life, not somebody who's, gone in a different direction. So I think that's a very important piece of this. So thank you for that. So last one, I guess, moving forward into 2024, knowing that he's got a job and you've had the opportunity to speak with him, is there anything new or different that you're both going to do or move about in the world differently? Or are you guys kind of same old schedule, day in, day out, self-discipline, you're up at 4, anything new?
Well, I'm still doing my regimen because it supports me, and I'm super clear about that. So I think the routine of us being in contact with each other is yet to be determined because he's still doing his work. And now he started a job. And pretty soon he's going to be moving into a halfway house. And so that's another layer of things that are in his life now that he's relearning to do from a healthy perspective. And so I'm just going to give him the space that he needs, and consistently let him know that no matter what happens here, he's always loved, and we'll figure it out. I mean, I think in June this year, it will have been 2 years since I saw him.
Wow.
And so I'm holding the space for his health and wellness and letting him determine what that looks like. And when he's ready, I'll be there. So I really encourage parents, take care of yourselves, give yourself a lot of grace and self-compassion, do your work, be the healthy, thriving parent or friend or grandparent when and if they pop out the other side, and continue to send really great thoughts of them healthy and whole.
Absolutely. Well, that's a really great way to finish it. And if you could help the parents or anybody out there who's going through this right now, especially with the no contact, can you remind everybody the name of your book and where they can find you?
You can find me on LinkedIn, or at voicesencourage.com, and, KL Wells. And the book that I just wrote this past year was The 5 Acts of Courage. And because I believe that the things we've talked about today are courageous. It takes guts to authentically, genuinely feel the depth of feelings that goes with this. And I think it takes courage and conviction to take care of yourself and to create a community of support and to change how you've looked at the disease or your loved one in a kind, compassionate way, and then continue to do the learning, because your life is going to change.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No question. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Sit down with you. It's been too long.
So thanks for doing this with me, Jen. I so appreciate you.
My pleasure. It's always good to chat with you. And I'm looking forward to our next topic, which we'll have to decide offline, I guess. All right. Thank you so much, KL.
Thank you for joining us in this episode. We hope this discussion gives you the empowerment you need during these challenging times. Remember, there is always light after darkness. For more inspiring conversations like this one, subscribe to the show at voicesencourage.com/podcast. We encourage you to share with your friends and family going through similar situations so we can continue to build a strong community of hope and possibility. Start your life-changing journey today. Join our community at voicesencourage.com.